Hey guys, EC Network here, coming at you with another video. After watching Avatar The Last Airbender about a month or so ago, I really wanted to watch more from this world, so I decided to give the Legend of Korra a watch, and I wanted to give you guys my full thoughts on the series. As per usual with these types of videos, spoilers will be ahead, you have been warned. But before we get into the review of Korra, if you guys haven't checked out my review of Avatar The Last Airbender, I will leave a card above to that, because I want to try to answer the question of, how does The Legend of Korra compare to Avatar The Last Airbender? Is it worse? Is it better? We'll get into that towards the latter parts of this video. But as for The Legend of Korra itself, I really enjoyed this series. I thought that it was a fantastic show in its own right that was really different from Avatar in a few ways. For those of you who've seen Avatar, it's an episodic series that has an overarching story throughout the 3 seasons. Essentially what I mean by that is every single episode is not progressing the plot. Some of them are one-and-off adventure episodes, but there is an overarching story that they're trying to tell within the 3 seasons, whereas The Legend of Korra is a serialized series where every single episode is progressing the plot forward. But on the flip side of that, each season has its own self-contained story, meaning that all 4 seasons aren't being connected to tell one grand tale, which is obviously a different way of storytelling with this show versus Avatar The Last Airbender. So with The Legend of Korra, each season has a different villain that is tied to the plot of that season. In the first season, we have Amon as the main villain, whose goal is essentially to get rid of bending in the world, to make it so that non-benders and benders are on the level playing field and they all have the same abilities and powers, because there will be no more bending. In season 2, we have Unalaq, who is the uncle of Korra, who essentially wants to merge the spirit world with the real world. He wants to open the spirit portals so that spirits can live amongst the humans, and he wants to become the first ever dark avatar to basically rule over this new world that he will create. In the 3rd season, we have Zahir as the main villain, who essentially is a part of a group called the Red Lotus, which is an offshoot of the White Lotus, and essentially their goal is to get rid of all the powers that be. They want there to be no governing bodies in the world so that everybody can live freely to do whatever they want. So they want to kill the Fire Lord, they want to kill the Earth Queen, they want to kill the President of the United Forces, which is this new army or new nation, if you will, that Aang and Zuko built to kind of govern over the entire world. They want to kill all those world leaders in addition to killing Korra to end the Avatar cycle by killing her in the Avatar state. They succeed in killing the Earth Queen, which then leads into the 4th season, where Devira is essentially a dictator who is taking over the Earth Kingdom because there's a power vacuum since the Earth Queen was killed. She calls herself the Grand Uniter, who is making the first ever Earth Empire, and that's essentially all the goals and aspirations of all the villains throughout The Legend of Korra. For me personally, my favorite season out of all of them was season 1. I just love the vibe that it was portraying. The New Republic city that we see is essentially like a 1930s, 40s, or 50s New York City. I love the different gangs and whatnot that were involved there, and just the general vibe that that season presented. As for season 2, I really liked the way it started out. I really liked how spirits were attacking the Southern Water Tribe, and how Unalaq started a civil war between the Northern and Southern Water Tribes. But where the season kind of hit a snag for me is once we got to the midpoint of the season, they started to introduce a lot of things within the spirit world, which were a bit wonky in my opinion. They show us how the first Avatar was created, how he came to be, and while I thought that was good lore to introduce to the series, I kind of felt like it was a bit disjointed in the way they do so, having just 2 episodes in the middle of season 2 dedicated to telling this tale when we're in the middle of a civil war in the Water Tribe, in the Southern Water Tribe, and the season comes to a head at the end of it where essentially Unalaq decides to become the first ever dark avatar, and he fuses with Vaatu, becoming something that looks like it came straight out of Attack on Titan. He and Korra take on these Titan forms to duke it out, and I wasn't really a big fan of all of that. I thought that season 3 started out a little bit on the slower side, but honestly it was one of the better seasons of the show. It really did a great job of showing off how these villains, Zahir and his crew, were trying to hunt down and kill the Avatar, kill all the world leaders. It was a bit darker and I really enjoyed that, and also too, the score that they made on the music track for Zahir and his crew is probably was some of my favorite music from the series. As for season 4, this is probably in my opinion the best the show had to offer. While season 1 was my favorite, I thought that everything was so well done in season 4 that it definitely takes the cake for being the best season of The Legend of Korra. Whether it be how it starts out with Korra essentially being crippled after she was poisoned in season 3, showing Devira take over the different cities within the Earth Kingdom, forming the first ever Earth Empire, to then attacking Republic City, it all was just so well done and really felt like like a great send-off for the series. Now, it's not all positive for The Legend of Korra though, because I have two big criticisms with the show, one of which that bothers me a bit more than the other, and the first of which is that The Legend of Korra tends to introduce something to then never follow up on it or never explain how or why it's happening. This happens all throughout the series. For example, in season 1, as I said before, Amon wants to rid the world of bending. He is able to remove someone's bending from their body so that they can never use it again. Obviously, Aang had the same ability that he used on Fire Lord Zuko, but how is it that this random guy Amon has this ability? And apparently the way he's able to do so is through his blood bending, but how is it possible that blood bending can take someone's bending away? And that is something that they just never explained to us. At the end of the season, Amon escapes with his brother Tarlok, and he basically is killed by Tarlok. Tarlok commits suicide and kills Amon in the process, and this is something that is never explained to us. Another thing in season 1 is Mako starts going out with Asami, who he then cheats on with Korra and goes out with Korra. They never really show Asami's reaction to the breakup. I thought that would have been a really powerful scene to see Team Avatar go through something like that, but then they never followed up on it. And then the same thing happens in season 2. In season 2, Korra is trying to get the United Forces army to essentially help with the Southern Warrior Tribe to assist in military aid. They deny her the request, and so General Iroh, who is the grandson of Fire Lord Zuko, says, okay, you should go see my mom and my grandpa. They'll give you the Fire Nation army to help the Southern Warrior Tribe. And on her way to do so, Korra gets knocked out. She becomes unconscious and loses her memory. They never really touched on whether or not she went to go see Fire Lord Zuko and his daughter Azumi. I thought that, oh, she probably did and they'll come into play later in the season, but then they never did. So again, it's a plot point that they just dropped mid-season and never touched on again. The other thing as well is Mako breaks up with Korra at this point, and he then gets back together with Asami, and then they kind of just drop that once Korra comes back into play, and the two of them never go out again for the rest of the season. Same thing goes for Bolin. Every season Bolin basically has a new love interest for the first 3 seasons, and he becomes a movie star in season 2 and goes out with this actress named Ginger, and then once season 3 comes around, Ginger is never to be seen again until the finale in season 4, and her and Bolin don't go out anymore. So again, rather confusing that they just drop that plot point. And the last instance of this is in season 3. Essentially, because the spirit portals were open, a bunch of people get the power to airbend now, and they never really explain how that happened, nor do they even speculate on it. They're like, oh wow, I guess the new spirit world portal being open allows people to bend air now. Well, that's really cool, but they never again dive into how that's happening. And that's my biggest criticism of the show, is that they like to introduce a certain idea without diving into how that is possible or how or why it's happening. My only other criticism of the series as a whole, and this might depend on who you are and how you feel about the characters, is I just felt like there were a bit too many of them. Like, it was really hard to get to know certain characters, and it felt like some of them were left behind because the show had such a wide range of characters within the main cast or the recurring cast. So what I mean by this is obviously we have Team Avatar, right? You have Korra, Asami, Mako, and Bolin, and outside of season 1 and towards the end of the show in season 4, they really don't spend all that much time together. They spend a lot of the show apart doing their own things, and I felt like that was a bad move for them to do because I really would have liked to see more interaction and how the team would grow throughout the 4 different seasons of the show. Then you have Tenzin, Bumi, and Kia, who are the 3 children of Aang and Katara, and quite frankly, I felt like their interactions together were some of the best character interactions in the entire show, but that's only something we really get to see in season 2 and a bit in season 3, because then they're not really shown as much outside of Tenzin. Bumi and Kia aren't really a part of the main cast of characters. Then of course you have Tenzin and Pema's kids, who were all fantastic characters, but again, they were only seen at certain points of the show because there is such a wide range of characters. I could keep going on and on and on. Tarlok and Amon, Asami's father, Mr. Sato. I can name to you Tarlok, who is the father of Korra, her mother, Katara, Toph, Zuko, Azumi. Fire Lord Azumi, which I was really looking forward to seeing her character, was barely even in the show. She is the daughter of Zuko and the father of General Iroh. And speaking of General Iroh, I thought he was going to be a major character in this series, and he wasn't. He was barely in the show outside of season 1, a quick cameo in season 2, and then a quick cameo in season 4. It felt like they introduced so many characters that it was really hard to get to know some of them and really grow attached to them like we did with the original cast of characters in Avatar The Last Airbender. Now, as for the show itself, the question I posed before is, how does this show compare to Avatar The Last Airbender? And while I think they're both good on their own merit, the way I would describe it to you is I feel like Avatar The Last Airbender had higher peaks and lower valleys. wise, in that some of the episodes were pretty bad, such as The Great Divide and The Runaway, while other episodes were really good, and honestly, it had the best shows and the best plot that the series has to offer. On the other hand, The Legend of Korra, I would say, is a more consistent series, in that quality-wise, it's pretty much around the same level of quality all throughout the show. Despite the fact that I wasn't a huge fan of season 2, I'm not going to say that it was a bad season. It was still good, it just wasn't exactly my cup of tea. So overall, I feel like Avatar is the better of the two shows because it has higher peaks, but on the other hand, Korra is more consistent with its storytelling, given that every single episode is progressing the plot forward. But overall, I really did enjoy The Legend of Korra. I thought that it was a great series and a great continuation of the Avatar franchise, and if you're a fan of just action shows in general, I would highly recommend this show because I feel like, as I said before, this is probably some of the best animation, if not the best animation, that I've ever seen in an animated series before. Anyways, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about The Legend of Korra? How do you think it compares to Avatar The Last Airbender? And do you agree with the criticisms that I have of the series, that there were too many characters in it and that they really like to introduce a plot point without really following up or explaining it? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.